welcome back everybody. It's been a while since I've worked on a project down here. This week started a new project. It's a case or cabinet for LP records. Some friends of ours are like heavily involved in the music industry, and he has quite a collection of LPs, and he asked if we could build a cabinet. They just bought a house, and so I went ahead and threw together a design for them. It's sort of a modern design, and basically it's got several shelves for the LPs, and the bottom will have two cabinet doors that'll be inset, and that's a side view. So they already had an existing piece of furniture which appeared to be walnut, so trying to match that. So what I've done is selected walnut plywood for this project. It's pretty expensive, but it's really nice stuff. So I've already gone ahead and cut most of the pieces to size using the track saw, and also I got to use this really for the first time. You may have seen my earlier video where I had purchased this Festool MFT table and I built the base for it. So this turned out to be super handy in cutting everything to size. It has the integrated stop, so I had several pieces that were the same length, so I was able to just put them in and then cut them to length, replace them. So I'm going to be, the next step I had done was on, these are the sides, and I went ahead and used a dado cutter on the table saw to put a dado in here, and this is where the back will get attached. So that's the project. If you want to follow along with it, I'll walk through the process. So these are going to be the intermediate shelves that the LPs are going to sit on. And then there's going to be a vertical divider in between each shelf that divides the cabinet into two halves. So right now I'm marking where those dividers are going to be. And then I'm going to be putting biscuits to attach the vertical dividers to each shelf. So I'm marking the biscuit locations right now. Okay, now I'm using the MFT table to clamp and hold these panels while I do the biscuiting. Got these Festool clamps. Love these things. All they do, they just quickly hook in through the holes, and then you can drop them down, and then like that, they're clamped. Then I'm able to just grab the biscuit cutter and cut some biscuits. Okay, it's the next day and we're continuing on the project. Today what I'm going to be working on is putting the biscuit slots in the faces of the two side panels for the case. So I've completed all my layout and mark out, and I've noted where all the biscuits go, and this is where the intermediate shelves will connect. I've already slotted all the shelf parts and the edges. So in order to do this, I'm going to try something a little new. In the past, what I've done is clamp the board next to each location, and then I can use the biscuit slot cutter in a vertical orientation. So I think with this MFT, it'll really work out well to do this because I've got a nice straight edge and it's perpendicular to the cut. So yesterday I did a test cut just to make sure this is going to work. So I did have a piece of scrap here. I went in and slotted it, put a biscuit in it, and then I took the biscuit cutter, lined it up here so it was against the fence, and then I cut a slot and went ahead and did my test fit, and it seems to fit pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and start to do that on some of these long side panels. Okay, it's another day and we're back on our LP cabinet build, and as you recall, we completed all the pocket hole installation on all the boards last time. So the next step is I want to drill some of the Craig fastener slots that are going to be used to attach the shelves to the vertical standards. So I've got the Craig jig here for drilling, and modified this a couple years ago and made this box that I can hook up my Festool dust extractor to, and it keeps collecting the chips, keeps it a little neater as I do the drilling. So the next step, we're going to be installing these Blum hinges. So it's taken me 3 tries to get the correct ones. I ordered, just caution, if you order them, I don't trust the descriptions on Amazon, because I ordered a set of Blum hinges. They were supposed to be for inset doors, which is what we're gonna have on this. And they came and I tried to mount them, and I find the Blum instructions are very difficult to understand, at least for me. But so I finally figured it out, and I installed them per the instructions, and it just didn't seem to work. So I kept thinking I was doing something wrong. So I finally ended up going on to cabinetparts, I believe, .com, and ordering a set on there and following their descriptions, and they arrived today, and I'm just doing a test fit. So these are the holes that I had previously drilled in my test piece. So I went ahead and installed in there, and then this is the bracket that's going to get mounted to the inside face of the cabinet. And so I used the dimensions that are in the instructions, and I just did a test fit, and I don't think that there is enough adjustment. Right now, you can see the edge of the door is protruding a bit past the side of the face. So I played with the adjustment, and I'm running it all the way in, and it's just now slightly more than flush. So I think I'm gonna wanna mount the bracket slightly further in. That way I have a little bit more adjustment. But other than that, I think the gap looks pretty good, and that's adjustable. And I'm going for an 1/8 inch gap on these, but overall I think this is going to work out well. Okay, the next step in the process is to apply edge banding to all the plywood before we do any assembly. So I've never used this before. I did a couple test pieces. This is a adhesive backed edge banding. This is walnut. It matches the plywood, but it has like a 3M adhesive applied to it. So basically, I just cut a piece a little bit longer than the section we're going to edge band. And I bought these cutters. These are made by Fast Cap, and they're meant to flush cut. And on my test piece, they worked really well. So for this, simply remove the backing on the adhesive, and then apply it so it overlaps both sides. I did watch a video where somebody had done this, and they made it flush on one side, and that may work. I'm a little worried that if I try to do that, I may come up a little short on one side. So I also bought this roller, so they can roll the edge banding to the piece. When that's completed, you take the Fast Cap cutters, and it cuts nice and flush to the edge. Then the last step is to take this trimming tool, and one thing, I hadn't used this in a while, and when I tried to do it the first on my test, I ended up like folding over the edge banding, and it was stuck to the side. So then I realized I wasn't paying attention to the arrows. There's arrows on this, so I have to make sure I have that correct. And then just like that, it's nicely trimmed, nice and flush. Then I take a foam sanding block and just break the edge so it's not razor sharp. And that's it. Okay, so it ended up being Friday evening, and we started doing some assembly, and our friends who were building the LP cabinet wanted to come over and help assemble it. So ended up being a fun Friday evening where we were down in the shop doing some assembly. Okay, for the next step, we started assembling the cabinet, and you can see we'd already installed the other side, and we were in the process of installing the last side panel. We had coated everything with glue and put biscuits in all the slots, so we were getting everything lined up and clamping. And then I used the Craig screws, which I'd already installed the Craig pockets on the underside of the shelves to pull everything together. You can see we're getting everything lined up, making sure everything was flush, and then we kept clamping and gluing. Okay, now with the sides attached, we were ready to install the back panel. So we had cut the back panel to size, and then we were in the process of putting glue on all the shelves and dividers. So once the glue was all installed, then we took the panel and we set it in place. And once the panel was properly in place, then I went ahead and nailed it using my cordless Milwaukee brad nailer, which works great, by the way. And I used some pipe clamps to pull in the sides in a couple areas where it was not snug. And I made sure everything was square before I went ahead and nailed it. Okay, here's a photo of the cabinet essentially complete. And you can see in this photo we built a base for it, but I unfortunately did not get footage of the base being installed. Okay, here is the cabinet after I delivered it to the client's house, sitting there next to the existing cabinet that has LPs. So they were very happy with it, and I think it's going to work out great.